This is my presentation. Actually Shauna named this, 2020 Variances of Global Embodied Feminist Perspectives. So, thank you, Shauna. So, the course was on women in peacemaking and leadership, and a little bit about the course is we explored the genocide of 1994 and its impact on Rwandan culture and society. We learned and discussed how women played an integral role in rebuilding society and taking over positions of leadership after the genocide, and their strength was inspiring to learn about and discuss in class. And we also learned about art, music, dance, reconciliation, togetherness of a community, how that helped the country heal and grow from the genocide. And the theme of the class, the 3 words that we used a lot was Kumva, Kwiga, Gakunda, which is Kinyarwanda for to listen, to learn, to love. And throughout the course, these words really were more than just words. They really helped me grow into the course and really get myself into the culture and able to learn from a place of understanding and to really open up my heart to these new experiences, and while still remaining humble and recognizing that this is not my place to speak over people and to more so listen to the people of the country and what they've been through, and to really learn from them and really take it to heart. And we also talked a lot about listening to understand, not just listening to respond to people. So that was a really big theme in the course that I tried to take away. And just why I chose to take this course, I've always wanted to travel abroad, but not do it as in a way where I'd be disrespectful, and I really wanted to learn because I really value learning, and I think it's important to learn about other cultures, to not be so inside of a bubble. And also the title of women in the course and how they led the way in peacemaking and leadership was very important, because I think that we need more women in positions of power, and to learn about them was really a privilege and honor. And some of the titles we read Rwandan Women Rising by Swanee Hunt, and it was amazing resource to really just understand how the women really gathered the country back together after the genocide, and it helped me to get a better perspective on all of the inner workings of how the society rebuilt itself after the genocide. And also we read a bunch of articles on American and Rwandan history, because our teachers talked about how it was important to know your own history before you go learn about another country's history, and race and racism, gender, and personal narratives from people. Yeah, so that was really helpful in navigating in Rwanda, learning. So we're going to talk about the history. The genocide began in 1994, but it did not happen, in 1 year overnight. It happened when the Belgian colonists came to Rwanda and divided the people into 3 classes, the Hutu, Tutsi, and Twa. And the Tutsis were the wealthiest class, they were the cattle farmers, but they were the minority, and the Hutus were the majority of the population. And the Belgians at first sided with the Tutsi and then changed and sided with the Hutu. And some say that because the president's plane was shot down, and that's what started the genocide, but it was a lot of things before, they were already killing Tutsis before the president's plane was shot down, and there was many, many years of violence, and it ultimately led to this. And one of the themes in one of the genocide memorials we went to was, after the Holocaust, they said never again, but it did happen again, because I feel like the genocide in Rwanda is not really talked about a lot. You don't really learn about it in schools, even though it was a major just atrocity. And it ended after over 1 million people, both Hutu and Tutsis, were killed. And the genocide stopped after about 100 days after a rebel Tutsi group came in, overthrew the government and the militia, and the world knew what was happening, what was going to happen in Rwanda. It could have been stopped. This is why it's so important to recognize that it did happen, even though it could have been stopped. And the languages spoken are French, English, and Kinyarwandan, and just art and dancing and togetherness. They have this thing, I forget what it's called, every Saturday, last Saturday of the month, the whole community comes together. And so community is a huge part of Rwandan society, and women in positions of power and leadership are very prominent in the government and systems of Rwanda. But Rwanda, it's important to recognize what happened in 1994. It's so much more than that. It's a beautiful, beautiful place full of art, culture, love, and community. these are just some pictures from the trip. And then this is how I integrated Kumva, Kwiga, Gakunda into my learning. And I think one of the things that, one of the readings that really helped me was this, I think it was like an article called Woman, Race, and Racism. It's about the partnership between a black woman and a white woman and how they work together. And the white woman's role is like a white ally, because in going to Rwanda as a white person, I kind of like struggled with that, like in my role and what I was like meant to do and not do. And one of the quotes that stood out to me was, "I'm not called to be perfect, I'm called to be faithful and consistent on these issues." And I think that's important to carry on, like through just your own community and coming back here. And also just finding the balance between being a visitor, having a lot of privilege in that, and also being comfortable to hold space, to be sad, happy, joyful, whatever I was feeling. And when we visited the Democratic Republic of Congo, and then we visited the border between Rwanda and the DRC, and we talked about this in like one of our apartment circles, how it was just very strange being like an outsider, like watching these people in their like daily lives, like just going back and forth across the border. And it was just interesting to like find the balance between feeling like a visitor and also like learning from that aspect. And this is how I grew emotionally. The LaSalle Karenge homestay was like one of my favorite parts because I love kids, and the kids we met there were amazing. They captured my heart, definitely. And in the book we read, Rwandan Woman Rising, it talks a lot about the kids' rights and how the kids are the future of Rwanda, and it's important to like stand up for them and make sure they have a better future, so the entire future of Rwanda can have a brighter future. Yeah, so the kids at LaSalle Karenge really embody this message. They're amazing. And also going to the genocide memorials was really intense. Like one of the most intense things I've ever been through, like just standing like on the ground where like, you know, like killings happened and people were dying senselessly was really emotional. It was a very heavy first couple of days, and it helped me understand myself though, and how I deal or don't deal with grief, how I push it away. And it was, I think it's really one of the most important things we did was to learn about the history. You have to know the history before you're able to see. And the Reconciliation Village was, again, like insanely inspiring, how the perpetrators and also victims live together in harmony, but they don't talk about which one they were. They just literally live together, and like they were saying how they feel comfortable leaving their kid at their neighbor's house, like no matter what. So it was really beautiful just to see them. And it made me learn that I should forgive myself and others, and the importance of that. And since there was a lot of heavy subject matter, I did learn a lot about myself, and again, how I process my own grief. And there's a lot of readings about like how to process grief and like protecting yourself and like recognizing what you need when experiencing like grief or trauma. And I learned a lot about how I behave. Definitely tend to push it away, causes problems later on. And I definitely, if I never would have gone on this trip, I never would have opened up my heart to peacemaking and forgiveness practices. And I'm now way more aware, like now, in my own life, how I treat people, and like putting compassion before judgment, or when people like do you wrong, like trying to understand them from a place of like love and like gratitude and graciousness rather than like hate and judgment, which is very prominent in Rwanda. Everybody's like, it's insane like how they were able to forgive each other and like live together in harmony, and the whole country like healed together. And just trying to integrate that into my everyday life to recognize what I learned in Rwanda. And then what we learned about how they dealt with the genocide, like there was like over 100,000 like perpetrators like waiting trial. So the Rwandan government came up with a system called Gakaka, and it, instead of like putting people like in jail and incarcerating them, it is trying to bring a community together and working on healing, and not like just putting these people in jail, because there was like so many of them. And this really gave me a good perspective on how important healing and community was to the country, not just like punishing people for awful things they did, and also the people who, like the perpetrators, also like were able to recognize what they'd done and ask for forgiveness, which was really inspiring and beautiful. And the fact that they were able to be forgiven was amazing. And in the reconciliation village, one of the perpetrators, he said a quote that I remember. He said, "Forgiveness is for yourself and reconciliation is for community, everybody else." And it's just showed how important it is to like balance your own feelings, like forgive people for yourself, and also to like reconcile like for others, and to like find the balance. And one of the women that I was most inspired by on the trip was the woman I met while at the basket weaving co-op, which was also one of my favorite experiences. She was really, really smart, very wise, very gentle with me because I didn't know what I was doing. And she talked a lot about like how she was very proud of how nurturing she was and how she took care of her family. And it's like in like feminism in Rwanda, it's they put a lot of value on the home life and like the nurturing aspect of women. Like in the book Rwandan Women Rising, there's one particular quote that I again remember. It says, "They saw their particular advantage in leadership stemming from their experience as mothers, a sentiment that would and does vex many Western feminists." And I remember like the women's marches were going on while we were in Rwanda, and it was just interesting to compare like Western values of feminism to like other cultures of feminism, because it's very different. And it just taught me to like look at other ways, like everything a woman possesses is like powerful, like all her natural instincts, her nurturing instincts, like it's valuable and it's not something to be like ashamed of if you want to be like that. So I just thought that was interesting to compare, again, Western views to Rwandan views. And this was me and her making a basket. Very beautiful. She was very sweet. And then again, our teachers, Sam and Ryan, made it a very, very, very clear point that we are not going to be going there to save anyone or do like service work, because we talked a lot about the white savior complex and how it's very prominent in especially like colleges, especially Catholic institutions, which is we're a Lasallian Catholic institution. I know there's like other mission trips, and they just like we weren't going to save anyone. And there's a great reading that we had on the white savior industrial complex saying there's so much more to doing good work than making a difference. You don't always have to do that. And we partnered with one organization called Zamzam Water, and actually he went to St. Mary's and he started this nonprofit, and it's not only in Rwanda, it's in like other countries in Africa and I forget where else. But he was talking about the implications of the word help a lot. And what he was saying is when you say you're like helping someone, you're like giving them something that they can't give you back, which is not true. Like when the people you meet, like in Rwanda, like they don't like need like your help. They give a lot back to you as well, because you're learning from them and their community and their stories as well. So just like being mindful when you're going somewhere to make a difference or to help someone or anyone, just being mindful of the implications of the words. And also how in a lot of Western cultures, we think of Africa as like one country or one continent. Like people are like, oh, you're going to Africa, but there's like so many countries with all different values, languages, cultures. It's not one, it is a continent, but it's not one huge country as a lot of people think. And I think it's just important to recognize that. And also that Rwanda is, even though it is very progressive in the way that it has women in leadership and peacemaking and reconciliation, it is not all perfect. Of course, there's work to be done, as in any society. No society is going to be all perfect. And just what can we all do to move on from this, just to take away, just educating yourselves, just being respectful of the culture, learning the language, learning the customs and the values, and understanding that it's going to be different from the Western Eurocentric view that a lot of us hold. So just being mindful of that, and also respectfully spreading the knowledge. Like, I'm not claiming to be an expert, of course. That would not be right. And also just being mindful of like the white savior complex, and also taking what I learned from Rwanda about like compassion, love, and graciousness, and like seeking to understand and listening to understand and listening to learn, and really like looking in people's lives and the stories that they hold and the experiences that they've gone through, no matter how horrible. Rwanda really like showed me that no matter what, you can always like come out with like gratitude and graciousness and compassion. And yeah, Marikose Shane. Thank you very much.